Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. This is Wendy Nimitz of Ingenuity Marketing Group, coming to you from icy St. Paul, Minnesota, where although we know intellectually it's about the first day of spring tomorrow, I believe, we know emotionally that it is cold as Hades, my city. Very, very cold today. But today we're not going to spend a lot of time talking about the weather. Rather, we're going to talk about 13 tactics that turn ordinary partners into superstars. Now, I know whether you're a marketing person or a professional on your way up, you're not ordinary. However, I think when it comes to distinguishing who should handle this case or matter, who should I bring my business valuation to, who needs to build our bridge, it's hard to distinguish one firm or one person from another. And in the past, what we always did was we looked for people who were superstars in their industry. You know, the person who knew the president of the association, the person who the newspapers used to call and interview, and the person who just seemed to be the in-the-know person who owned the mind share of a certain place to go to whenever I have this need. That's changed a lot. It used to take a decade or more to build that reputation of going to all sorts of networking meetings and speaking and taking reporters out for lunch. And now, because of the internet, we're seeing that really shift. Some of our tried and true tactics still work, but there's a lot of new tactics that you have to master in order to become a superstar, to own a niche reputation. Unfortunately, I've brought two particular superstars with me to talk to you about this in more detail. Some of the things that they're going to talk to you about is how to connect the offline world, which oldsters like me call the real world, with the online world and with calls to action. How to leverage keywords online and how to use them to add depth with offline activities. How to use videos and podcasts and blogs and LinkedIn and social media and all that stuff to build your superstar reputation. And also some stuff about linking strategies and things that really, to be perfectly honest, I don't know a lot about. So I brought some very important experts with me. Now, you know Ingenuity Marketing Group. I believe if you're on the webinar, you know about us. We focus on the people of professional services, and one of the things that helps them do is earn that superstar reputation. We're also a special guest star with us from Wittberg LLC. And I'm going to introduce Alan Wittberg in just a moment. He's a longtime colleague of ours, someone that we really respect and trust and feel is extremely knowledgeable in this area. So we thought we would share him with our audience. The next slide is going to show you a picture of me. I'm a senior consultant at Ingenuity because I founded the place about, 20-some years ago. I think it's 22 years ago. Boy, that went fast. Although I know a lot about professional service marketing, when it comes to really tying the tried and true tactics into the online world, I had to bring some more expertise to bear. So the first person I brought along was Rachel Gold, and Rachel is Ingenuity's lead online expert. And I always explain in my old-fashioned way that what Rachel doesn't know about the online world would fit into teacup. But of course, Rachel would laugh at me and say the entire online world will fit into teacup, Wendy, so don't say that. But I'm sure you understand what I mean. She is the person that when you need to connect through traditional strategies, marketing, she's the person who you come to at Ingenuity Marketing. She started as a writer with an MFA in writing. Built her expertise since then. And then our special guest star today is Alan Wittberg. And Alan has been known for years, particularly in the accounting industry, but he knows a lot about all the professions, as somebody who really gets it, who has great strategy, great execution. And Alan has really moved his expertise into working with HubSpot and into making your online presence really work for you, not just so that you can have a Facebook page, but so that people find you on the internet when they're looking for your expertise, and so that people can really, if they just take one look at you, they can get into a lead nurturing sequence, and so they get more and more information about you. And so I'm just delighted that both Rachel and Alan will be able to tell you what they know and also answer your questions on this webinar today.
And this is Rachel. I'd just like to say feel free to ask questions at any point using the question section on the control panel of your GoToWebinar. So you can type a question in at any point, and we'll field them as we get to those topics.
For sure. We'd love to take questions. Now, in the past, it took a long time to become the go-to superstar. And usually in a professional service firm, even, say, a larger law firm, you'll have one or two, I'll call them the guys, although they aren't always guys, who are the go-to guys, and everyone knows them, and they know that if they have this type of problem or that type of problem, they should go to them. I think now is the opportunity for smaller firms and for younger individuals or individuals who are less, rainmaker-ish. There used to be categories called finders, minders, and grinders. And it's funny because the finders were the people that were virtually always the superstars. And I think the internet has given both minders and grinders great opportunities to build their reputations. It used to be very rare to have a superstar partner, just a few per firm. And now you can have a lot of them per firm. You can tee them up a few at a time and push them in all their niches. And the thing I know about the superstar reputation is it has a direct impact on sales. Not only do you get more at-bats, but I know for sure that if you are the recognized leader in the billing rate. Nowadays, in our super connected world, you can be an internet superstar in a year or two. And in this webinar, you're going to learn how to position yourself or the partners in your firm as thought leaders, as the go-to people in various areas. So let's look at prospects now and how they turn to online searches. I know just anecdotally from myself, actually, whenever I need to know a bit more about information before I go out to my network and ask them, who should I be using for this or that, I do my research on the internet. Go to my best friend Google, and I look for the base information. So frankly, I don't sound stupid when I ask my network who to go for. And I know that more than ever, being that superstar and owning that reputation really involves being, sort of owning an online space so that when I do a fairly naive search in Google, that person will come up. So Rachel, what's your experience with this? I mean, are you seeing that people are going more to the internet?
Well, you know that I am kind of a stats geek, so I got some statistics for us from the Pew Internet and American Life Project. And they were looking at online habits of Americans, and they found that 58% of them say they perform online research before they buy products or services. So it's 58%. And if you just look at the ones who identify as internet users, that actually goes up to 78% of internet users are researching online before they buy.
And that's almost all business-to-business users are people that use the internet. So that's 78% for virtually all of your clients.
Right, and like I said, it includes services as well as products. So almost everyone is looking for something online before they're purchasing it.
Ellen, what are you seeing?
Well, first of all, let me thank you for inviting me to your webinar series. I know we've worked together and have known each other for a long time, so I appreciate the opportunity very much. I've seen such a transition over the years from where the typically the use of the internet by professional services firms was to be an extension of their brochure. And today, firms really need to readjust their thinking and to create conditions so that their partners, whether they're reluctant superstars or superstars, really start to show up in the searches. And, as Rachel said, so most businesses are starting their search process online. And most businesses, when they're looking for an answer to a question or an issue that they have, aren't necessarily going to the referral sources. They're starting with an online search. And boy, wouldn't it be great if that partner in your firm showed up in those search results? So I think we're going to talk a little bit about that and how to make that happen today. But I'll share one other statistic with you, and that is that if you look at your own firm's page rankings or your own search results, you'll typically find that after your home page, the most searched pages on your firm's websites are going to be partners' bios. So it makes sense to really capture that eyeball and do something great with that capture once you have it.
You know, Alan, we also do a lot of work with websites for professional service firms, and it's almost always the partner bios, and especially the superstars, people that own a niche. Those are, other than the jobs pages, by far the most trafficked pages in websites before and after an update. So I really hear what you're thinking. You know, I actually have the first question for both of you. This morning we were in a prospect meeting, and the prospect asked us, you know, do you think we should create content on the internet from our firm or from our partners? And she was really curious as to what the ups and downs of that are. Do either of you have a comment on that?
I do, but I'm going to give Alan first dibs if you want them.
Sure. First tips. Well, you know, I think that there's two types of brandings that are going to get executed through your website. You're going to have a corporate brand, and then you're going to have your personal brands. And I think you've really got to figure out a way of how to mix and match the two. For example, blogging is a great way of mixing corporate branding and personal branding initiatives. When it comes to developing content, I think at the end of the day that the sale is made face-to-face. It's made from one person to another person. So I always like to see an author on content that's delivered either through the website or through any other means, whether it's an offline means, as you mentioned earlier, Wendy, or whether it's through the just wide world of online media that's available today.
Yeah, I definitely agree that it's great to have a mix of content, I think. I mean, I'm a big believer in having a strong brand that you've trained your people in how to use, so that your partners are very good at expressing the core brand of the firm, so that you're not seeing individual partners operating outside of the brand. People are really getting them together. And I think, you know, Alan and I are going to talk about this in a little bit. Also, not just using bylines, but other calls to action that connect people from relevant content online to the individuals that they could speak to about that content. So I think there needs to be a good pathway back and forth between the brand of the firm and the individuals in the firm.
Great answers. That's really helpful. You know, one thing that we see now is, how do I do all that? We hear so many people talking about online this and online that and branding. And I mean, Rachel, what are your thoughts about this? How do you actually do it?
Well, I think, you know, the exciting part, I think, for a lot of people about this is it isn't about how many decades you've been behind a desk. You know, it's about the quality of content and the quality of thinking that you can put out there right now. So, you know, one simple way to approach it is, if you think through what are the pains and the needs of your prospective clients, and you can answer their questions in thoughtful, useful ways, you tend to jump to the top of the list in their mind, because a lot of times when people have a need, they may not be typing in law firm or CPA firm into Google. They might be typing in, how do I sell a business, for example. And if you have some great thought leadership out there about selling small businesses, you've now positioned yourself as an expert, and you're at the top of the list for them.
You know, Rachel's talking all about thought leadership, and I hear people, you know, a lot of prospects come to us and say, I want to be the thought leader, I want to be the thought leader. Alan, what are your thoughts on that? I mean, you hear it all over the place, but I don't think very many people have done a good job capturing that.
Well, you know, it used to be, and to a very large extent, the way that most professional services firms are going to get new business is going to be on the basis of who you know. Referral and one-to-one marketing is still going to be one of the strongest ways folks are going to get business. But increasingly what we're finding, it's not only who you know, but it's what you know and how quickly you can bring your information or your thoughts or your interpretation to the marketplace that becomes a key differentiator in the way that firms are being selected for opportunities. So, you know, thought leadership becomes a way of capturing a unique perspective of a subject matter expert on a particular pain point or issue and delivering that message to an audience that's in broader in scope and reach than they've ever had the opportunity to do before. So when we talk about thought leadership, we're really talking about taking a central idea, packaging it, and there's so many different ways to package it, whether it's a white paper, a blog, or a video, and then delivering that online. And I know Rachel's going to talk a little bit about optimization and how to make sure you get ranked high in the search engine rankings for that. But my perspective is this, is that when it comes down to choosing a professional service provider, if I have an insight to the way that that person A thinks, and I can agree with that, then that's the person I'm going to choose to do my my business or solve my pain or issue.
Alan, can I ask you a naive question? Do you think it's better to use that central idea of thought leadership you were talking about just one way, like just blog about it? Or do you think you should use it a number of different ways?
Oh, no, we use a concept at Vipper LLC. We use a concept that's called Center of the Hub Marketing. And basically what that says is that if we have one nugget, one lofty thought, we want to see how many different ways we can bring that thought out to market. So we may start with a blog, we may tweet it, we may put it into our LinkedIn profile. If it's strong enough, we may do a video around it. So what we want to do is really figure out, again, back to the concept, how do we make somebody a superstar? Well, we make them a superstar by taking their central thought and figuring out as many different ways that we can distribute that thought through as many different online channels as possible. And that's one of the real key secrets of being a superstar, is not to be one-dimensional, but to have the infrastructure in place so that you can just hit it out of the park every time that you spend the time and make the investment in delivering a piece of thought leadership.
Okay, thank you. This is what we're going to do next. Is we've been talking sort of about the generalities of how you do it and teasing you with a few big ideas. I'm going to ask Rachel and Alan to get into the nitty-gritty. Do this, don't do that, and really focus on some details, because I think we all have some kind of overview of how it's done. So let's go first into our first big idea, and that's about keywords. Rachel, can you tee me up and teach me a little bit about this?
Absolutely. I am a fan of keywords. So, the first idea is to know your keywords that relate to your subject matter and industry expertise, and also to understand what makes you different from your competitors. So to talk about keywords, first, I'm going to remember to say that SEO stands for Search Engine Optimization, because I always put that out. And when you're thinking about search engine optimization, what that means is being found on Google or Bing or Yahoo when people search for you. And the best way to do that is to find your long tail keywords. And a long tail keyword, search experts discovered this years ago, that when you go to look for something, you start out kind of vague, and then you get more and more specific. So, for example, I might start out with a term, sell a business, sell a small business, sell a small business restaurant. I'm getting more and more specific because I realize that if I just type in sell a business, I haven't gotten the answers that I needed to sell my restaurant, if that's my problem. So the long tail keyword is sell a small business restaurant, or sell
maybe Minnesota.
Right, maybe Minnesota. It's that richer phrase that has more pieces to it. So you can use the Google's free keyword tool to find some of those long tail keywords that relate to the areas that you are an expert in. And then the second piece of it is to understand,
next slide.
Let's do the next slide. I'll say the second piece. So we have a slide here that actually shows you some of the long tail keywords for a client of ours. They specialize in accounting for pharmacies, as you may have guessed, because I have that highlighted in their heading. So pharmacy accounting, accounting firm for pharmacies, accounting for pharmacies, all of the different permutations of pharmacy accounting, independent pharmacy accounting, those are all in their keywords. And you can see here it's used in the page title, and it's used in the header on their website. And those are some real high-value real estate pieces, to use your keywords in titles, headlines, in social media status updates. You want those to have keywords whenever you can do it in a way that's humanly readable. So you don't want to make it sound awkward. As a writer, I have to caution you, it still has to read well, but getting your keywords in there means it's more and more likely that you're going to be found. And the other piece that I wanted to add, we also said understand what makes you different from your competition. So in addition to your keywords, you have to have a good sense of your brand or your key differentiators. What makes you stand out? Because you're going to want to be able to express those as well, so that when someone finds you, they can quickly see why you're the right choice for them, why you're superior from your competition.
My sense, Rachel, is that hardly anyone really uses these long tail search words well, or search phrases well. And so most of the time it's nice to look at your competitors' use of them, but most of the time if you're good at this, you're rocking it, right?
Well, absolutely. And I've seen some very funny examples. I've seen some firms, sadly, where they think that one of their keywords should be law firm. And that is much too vague. And then my favorite specific example, they actually did a microsite with this URL, ridinglawnmoweraccidents.com, because that was one of the niche practices in their firm. And
they understood that.
Exactly. And people will search for that. If you've been in a riding lawnmower accident, you will type that in.
Go to number 2. All right, on number 2, we're going to talk about bios. And Rachel, I hope you don't mind if I just keep you going here.
I don't mind. So we already sort of talked about the importance of bios because they're one of the most visited pages that you see on firm websites. And I think one of the reasons that they're so important in professional services is you have this really long cycle business-to-business sale. So people are looking for, who is this that I'm going to be in a business relationship with for years? I mean, a lot of these relationships span 5, 10, 20 years if you find a great accountant or a great attorney, and that's what people are looking for. So you want to make sure that your bio is engaging, that it tells a story. It's not just a laundry list. And you want to use your keywords in your bio. And here's an example of a nice engaging bio from a CPA firm. And you can see, like, everything about this page is engaging. You've got the carousel of bios up at the top. You can go through and meet the different accountants. The bio starts with a quote, so you can kind of hear something in Eric's voice. And then it's nice and short, but it gives you a good idea of what he does and if he's a fit for you. And then you see you can call him directly, go to his LinkedIn, send him an email. There's a lot of ways to get in touch with him right away.
A lot of my clients or a lot of my prospects come to me and say, well, do you think we should do a blog? And there's a lot of right answers for that, including yes and no, never. But I'm going to ask Alan to really talk to you about blogging and how you use it to build your superstar reputation.
I was just thinking that, and I'm sure you'd agree with me, that if we had a nickel for every poorly written, bio that we've seen, that that we'd be retired by now. It's I just like to say, just one other thing about the bios that you showed also, that the bios that you showed had a lot of other elements working for it, not just the descriptive nature. It had ways to get in touch with the partners. It had ways to print. It had ways to shortly address narrow degrees of interest, whether it was affiliations or other personnel. I mean, this is a great bio, short, sweet, to the point, lots of ways to get in contact. And that's one of the things that makes partners into superstars, is they know that their bios have got to get the message across quickly, and there has to be ways of reaching that partner. So this is a great example. On to blogging. First of all, in my opinion, the single most important, hands down, no baloney way to turn a partner into a superstar is with blogging. Blogging is the secret sauce to online marketing, for creating subject matter experts, for creating differentiation, for delivering thought leadership. Blogging does more for a firm than just deliver a set of information of a particular thought leadership. It helps in indexing. It helps in search engine rankings. It helps in keeping the reader on site. longer. But at the end of the day, what we want to make sure that our blogs are being used for is to associate that particular thought, that information, 400 to 600 words around a particular issue or a pain point or a point of view, and relate it to a partner's perspective so that we can start to engage that eyeball that's come to that piece with the firm and with some of the subject matter experts of that firm. So, when clients come to me and they say, should we blog? My number one answer is that should be pretty high at the top of your list in terms of the infrastructure you built in. So, I mean, here's an example of a blog that delivers. There's so many working pieces that you see here. The first one is you can see that it identifies the author, and we do something here what's called tagging or indexing, so that if Tim Jones is tagged, so to speak, that means that somebody could come in and pull up every single one of Tim's blogs with one click. So if we're talking about one easy way to deliver a lot of thought leadership simply and to the point, it's with tagging, and that you see that tag right up front there. You also see that there are ways of connecting this blog to social media, so that if a reader comes into this particular blog, if they feel that this is worthy of sharing with their network, with one click on that blog platform, they'll be able to deliver this out to other readers as well. And the other thing that this does, there's two other elements I want to show you on this page here. One of them is that any of the words that you see in blue there are links back to other parts of the website. So in this particular case, we're talking about a valuation-related blog. Well, we may want that reader to find about the firm's valuation services. So here's a way we talked earlier about balancing the personal with the corporate sides of branding, and that's one of the elements that we want to see in a well-written and a well-executed blog post. And the very last thing I'm going to show you on this is that there's a call to action. And now we're using this blog to generate leads, because if somebody wants to read about Feldman losing a huge insurance claim, what's going to happen is that they're going to click on that, they're going to be taken to a landing page where there's going to be a request to provide some contact information, and once that contact information is provided, that individual can access this particular piece of thought leadership. So, it's for some of you out there listening that this may be a new concept to you. But when we talk about leveraging our website and leveraging our blog, we're talking about how do we get the biggest bang for our buck. And one of the ways of doing this is by putting thought leadership behind a form and using our blog to direct people to the landing page for that form. So you can see there's a lot of different things working. This is why I love blogs, because it just does so much for you. But blogs are one part of creating a superstar. Another part, and Wendy, would you tell me a little bit what your guys' experience is? I'm going to go into some detail, but I love LinkedIn also. I love using LinkedIn to create superstars as well. You can go to the next slide here.
Yeah, we also have used LinkedIn extensively. We started with it with ourselves years ago, but I would say, as well as blogging, which I agree with you is a powerful way to turn into a superstar, having a good LinkedIn profile makes a huge difference. And whenever I go to someone's LinkedIn profile and there's no picture and it's just the very minimum that's auto-filled in, I think, this person isn't really with it. They're not paying attention anymore.
I agree with you. It's become so prevalent. I mean, we've got hundreds of millions of professionals on LinkedIn these days, and the ones that are using LinkedIn to create, to position themselves as a superstar are using every single possible capability that LinkedIn provides, and they're doing it with some style, they're doing it by paying some attention to it, and for the most part, once you set up your LinkedIn profile, maintaining it is really pretty easy. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to go a little bit deeper, okay, in a couple of slides here and show you a couple of the parts of LinkedIn that are really important. If you want to be a superstar, you got to make sure that you pay attention to a couple of these different things here. I mean, you've got an opportunity to talk about your current and your past job history. And here's where you can go back in and you can use some of those keywords that Rachel talked about, or those long tail keyword phrases that Rachel talked about. Because again, we're reinforcing who you are and what your personal brand is. LinkedIn also gives you the opportunity to show other folks who are recommending you for your particular experience or your expertise. And they can do that in a written form, and there are some new ways of doing that through very simple recommendation format that I'll show you on the next slide here. It also provides some opportunity to link back to your website and so forth. But when I think about LinkedIn, I think about there's four things that I want to make sure that my clients are executing, because I want them to be superstars. Number one, I want to be able to showcase their experience in a bio-like form. I want to be, second thing is I want to be able to showcase their thought leadership and to have links back to the thought leadership. We can do that right from a LinkedIn profile. I like to, I call it the they like me part of LinkedIn, where this is a new way. LinkedIn launched this within the past 6 months or so, where people can endorse your skill set. And every time you get an endorsement, you get another little picture kind of pops up, and it shows people who come to your profile who is endorsing you for that particular skill set. Again, think about this. If you've got somebody who is, let's say that one of your prospects is looking for someone who is an expert in not-for-profit audits. If somebody has got 30 or 40 likes, okay, on their LinkedIn profile, that really shows that people consider them to be an expert in not-for-profit auditing, doesn't it start to make you a superstar compared to someone who's got none or very few of those? This is a great tool, for creating superstars. And the last thing that I like about LinkedIn is that it gives you a chance to find and participate in different communities. And that's really what social media is all about. It is about finding and participating in forums and in groups where you can deliver your thought leadership and participate and grow relationships. So those are the things that I love LinkedIn for, and I think it's a very, very strong part of becoming a superstar.
Hey, Ellen, I have a question.
Sure.
One of the questions is, blogs are very time-consuming. Do you believe the ROI is really good?
Well, that's a great question. Let's define ROI a couple of different ways. Let's define it first in terms of, do blogs create business? Do they create leads? And the answer is that 70% of firms that consistently blog find that their blog is generating leads and new business for them. So there is absolutely an ROI from that perspective. The other type of ROI that's actually measurable is you can actually measure how far and wide your thought leadership is being put into cyberspace by the number of likes, by the number of fans, by the number of tweets that you have. So you can definitely measure that as well. And for reluctant rainmakers. Okay, they talked about the finders and the binders. It is the way that they can contribute to their firm's business development efforts without getting into the types of sales processes so that they don't necessarily enjoy. So the ROI of being able to use their time to create a powerful presence is huge, and it's unprecedented, and it's the opportunities in front of us to make that happen.
So that's a big yes, huh?
That's a big yes. Yeah, I believe so. So,
number 5, let's talk about calls to action. You know, I think everyone sort of knows what a call to action is, but Alan, could you expand a little bit on that?
Sure. I mean, a call to action is basically, we'll call it a button, some type of graphic that you're going to find on a web page that drives the reader to a form. Generally, it's going to be to download something or to get something, or it can be to drive them to your series of blog posts, or it can be used to get people to come to a webinar. But you can see here's one that's a little call to action that, well, actually there's 2 calls to action on this particular partner's bio page. One of them is read my latest blog post. Again, this is a graphic element that was, created in PowerPoint, placed on the website, and linked back to the this particular partner's bio tag. So when you click on that, you get, I think at this point with this partner, he probably has 30 or 35 different blog posts that people can read. But the other call to action button that you see there is read my client testimonials. Again, that's a click, and that delivers up all of these different testimonials, each testimonial on a single page that, an eyeball, the reader, whoever's coming into the site, can access without having to do a lot of digging. Calls to action are just a fundamental part of website design and development these days.
Well, let's talk to Rachel, because Rachel, you do a lot of speaking, as do I. And I know that speaking events have always worked for me. I mean, they definitely generate business. What's been your experience?
I agree, certainly. They're a great way to generate business, especially if you use a rich speaker evaluation form. But I think what some firms haven't really thought through is how to really utilize the content and how to connect people from a real-world speaking event back to the website. So, I definitely recommend that firms have a systematic speakers bureau or work with a firm that can set them up to speak and to have their experts go out and speak. That if possible, they record those speaking events so they can use the content some other way. And then I have an example on this next slide of linking. This was actually from a presentation that I gave last month, and you can see it links back to a tutorial video about using SEO keywords. And that was a way of taking the people who are in the audience who may be in various different stages of their own buying cycles and driving them back to our web presence so that we can stay engaged with them. And speaking of speaking, I should answer another question we got, which is that, yes, we are recording this, and we will post this webinar up later so that if you missed part of it or if you have someone else that you want to direct to this webinar, you will be able to view it online afterwards.
Rachel, one of the things we do at Ingenuity all the time is we use those content nuggets and we try to reuse them.
Yeah.
And I know I asked that naive question of Alan before because I think it's so important. Good content is hard to create.
It is.
Tell me about repurposing.
Well, speeches, it takes time to prepare and deliver a speech, and you can either audio record or video record them so that you can use that content again later. And I have a picture on the next page. This is Terry Slattery giving a speech. He wouldn't mind me saying it because he's a wonderful speaker. And this seminar that he did here, that you can see it's recording because it's in a video window, we were able to clip up this multi-hour seminar that he did into a number of short videos for his website and then get parts of it transcribed and create ebooks from the transcripts. So that was a way, this is for your really busy partners. You know, he's a super busy guy. He didn't have to create any more content after that initial seminar, and yet he gets a variety of short videos and ebooks and potentially articles out of that one piece of work that he did without having to spend more time.
Well, and this is where your marketing department really looks like superstars, because you show up and videotape your partner doing a long seminar, boom, you are the wizard. You know, the one thing I do want to have us talk about a little bit is videos. And Alan, I know you have some experience with videos because that's where the internet is going.
You know, again, this is one of those must-haves, quickly becoming a must-have for professional services firms, and particularly a must-have for creating superstars. Also, it's a way to deliver your thought leadership in a unique content format. And here's just a simple example, and like the example you showed, Rachel, is an example where we took a complex subject, the tangible asset regulations, created a series of 10 different videos, but also we created a series of 10 different blog posts to go with each one of those videos. So there was a lot of cross-linking that went back and forth. But to go back to your central idea, and I think it's a really important one, is that the marketing department has a huge role in helping turn ordinary partners into superstars. Because if you can take an hour of their time and take that content and leverage it into multiple videos and multiple blog posts and a lot of different tweets and posts on LinkedIn, you're doing your job at that point. You're doing a great job. Partners are going to love you, and that's how they become superstars.
One thing you also have done before is take the slideshows or PowerPoint presentations. Do you want to talk a little bit about how to do that well?
Yeah, and the framework that I'm going to put this in is that we talked about partners, partner superstars as being thought leader superstars, but we also like them to be business development superstars as well. And we can use leveraged or repurposed materials to turn them into business developers. And if you go to the next slide here, I'll show you an example here of a PowerPoint presentation, and that was used to help this one partner develop business. And what he did was he delivered a presentation on fraud awareness and detection for the asset-based lenders. And the idea behind this was, rather than post this up on the website for free, is that if we made people request this presentation and made them fill out a form, that we would actually generate leads out of this, so that this partner could then take his experience and expertise and call upon those folks who made the request to see if they were interested in further engaging in a dialogue or a conversation. So many different ways of taking content, using it in whether it's free access or tuck it behind the form type of access. This is a way of helping that partner. I do want to mention one other really interesting thing here is that after this particular offer was posted on the website, we saw a 43% increase in visits to this partner's bio page, and about 1 out of every 5 people that came to this landing page ended up becoming a lead. And that's a great conversion rate, a 20% conversion rate based around a partner superstar initiative is that makes for a happy day for the marketing department and for the partner also.
So speaking of that, I have a technical question. One of our listeners asked, when it comes to optimizing videos, can keywords be added, and where does that happen? Can either of you address that?
I can. You definitely want to make sure that you have keywords in the text associated with the video. So, for example, whether you're putting it on your website or you're putting it on YouTube and linking to your website, there's an opportunity for a headline, the text associated with the video, and usually, at least on YouTube, there's an opportunity to tag it with various tags like the ones that Alan showed earlier. So I would say definitely in the headline of the video, if you can get keywords in there, that's great, or in that description paragraph where you're telling people what the video is about. And if the video is on your website, then you want to make sure it's in the page title of that web page that's hosting the video, and any headlines that are on your web page.
You know, Rachel, I have another question for you on our tip number 10. I know that focusing on services or industries on the website is very important, not quite as important as the bio, but still really up there. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, like how to maximize that?
Well, I think it's just important to think about, you know, people come to the pages of your website at all different stages in their buying cycle. So some of them are just at that really early stage, and some of them are just about ready to talk to someone. So you want to make sure that if they're further along, that they know who to talk to. You know, and we sort of mentioned this in calls to action. I think the next slide has an example. You know, here we've got, we're on a services page, but you can see over on the right, there's a photo of a partner. You can click through to read the bio. So there's that kind of sense of warm human connection. It's not intrusive, but if you're at that point where you want to talk to someone, you know who to talk to. And not only can you do this on your website, but the LinkedIn company pages. If you sort of maximizing your LinkedIn company page presence, you can link different services on your LinkedIn company page to the actual partners responsible for those services. So you can have the same kind of setup on LinkedIn as well, and sort of direct people exactly who to talk to when they're ready to talk to someone.
You know, the next thing is about publicity, and one thing you might not all know about Rachel is she's a published author. So in addition to all that she does at Ingenuity, she also is an accomplished publicist and has had to really learn a lot both to publicize her own books and to work with our clients. So Rachel, can you tell us a little bit more about how that contributes to SEO and being a superstar and all of that?
Yeah, I love publicity and I love contributed articles. And to define that quickly, a contributed article happens when a blog or an online magazine or a print magazine or newspaper has space that they keep aside for experts to write stories on a specific topic. So you'll see an example here. The publication is Medical Office Today, and this article, How to Avoid Being Banned from Medicare, is actually written by an attorney who's working in the area of healthcare law. And what I think is really wonderful about contributed articles and other publicity is that you're leveraging the credibility of the magazine or the blog that's publishing your article. So if you're a partner at a firm and you're building your platform as an expert, you know, say you're just starting off with your own blog and you maybe have 20 subscribers, that doesn't seem very exciting. Getting an article in another publication is a way to drive their viewers to your blog, to your website, and to show the credibility. You know, this publication thinks that I'm an expert. They chose my article. So it's really a way to build credibility quickly, is to leverage other people's audiences.
And how do you get those articles written if you're not a writer, Rachel?
You get ghostwriting. You hire a writer. I know it's the best kept secret in marketing and publicity. We do a lot of ghostwriting here, and you know, it's funny to me how overjoyed some people are when I explain ghostwriting. You know, that you can call me when you're in your car on your commute and talk to me for 20 minutes about a topic, and I will write the article for you, and then you'll approve it. It's very exciting for people who've spent hours staring at a blank page, or they're just, you know, they have a high billable rate, they can't take the time to sit and write. You can have someone else write it for you and then just edit and approve it.
So Alan, I want to ask you about white papers, because I am a chronic white paper downloader, and unfortunately printer outer and taker homer and reader embedder. Oh, I just outlined my boring life. Alan, can you tell us about how to use
Sure. Well, you know, white papers are you know, a fundamental piece of both the thought leadership process and the lead generation process. And a white paper is to give some perspective. A blog may be between 400 and 600 words. A white paper may be 1,800 to 2,000 words. An ebook, if you've seen that, may end up being 7,000 or 8,000 words or more. So a white paper is pretty much a much bigger commitment than just writing a blog. So that white paper has got to be particularly effective in realizing your objectives of establishing yourself as a thought leadership and to generate leads. And as Rachel said, a lot of professionals don't have the time, so they'll turn to firms like Bitburger, like Ingenuity, to help and prepare, think about what those white papers should be. But we're always looking at developing white papers around really strong pains that prospects have, because those are the ones that are going to get downloaded the most. So we spend an extraordinary amount of time making sure that the white paper is very topical and that we can deliver it with some kind of panache, some kind of compelling title. But here's an example right here about moving to cloud computing that was prepared by this one partner. And to be honest with you, that partner wrote very little of it. All he did, we throw some proposals at us, throw some brochures, sat down for an hour, and at the end of the day, the 2,000 words later, we had something that was ready for publication. But this particular white paper in the past year had about 140 views and a conversion rate of about 13%. So, we're looking at about 20 people or so ended up downloading this white paper to start the conversation with Matt here about ERP and cloud computing services. But the other interesting thing is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I just had a question from the audience, and Shirley wants us to tell her how much it costs to get ghostwritten white papers or blogs or articles. And I can tell you, Shirley, that our senior ghostwriters charge $175 an hour, and that's because they already know a lot about the professional services we serve. So they're experts, your partners never have to teach us a lot of context. And so it seems expensive at first, but when you see how much, instead of a partner spending 3 to 6 hours writing an article, one of our ghostwriters spends 1 or 2 hours writing an article, and the partner spends 20 minutes maximizing it, you start to see some real cost savings. Ellen, when you put together a white paper, do you have any rule of thumb of the cost, or what sort of costs are you seeing?
Well, I mean, our costs, fall into a couple of different buckets. One of them is actually developing the piece itself. And, right, Wendy, we're at basically the same hourly rate as you for doing that. But we're also looking at the cost for helping do the promotion of that white paper and the cost for following up on that white paper as well. So it's an entire campaign that we're generally packaging. And that's one of the key messages that I think I'd like everybody to take away, is it's just not, putting 2,000 words on a piece of paper. You got to promote it. And you've got to figure out ways of delivering your you got the ways of putting this white paper in front of people so that they'll request it, and you've got to have something at the back end so that when somebody does request it, you have a means to follow up with either additional content or with phone calls. So when you look at that total cost range, a white paper can be several thousands of dollars for an entire campaign, but generally it's just a fraction of the cost of what the return on that investment is going to be.
And I found people that are downloading your white papers are very seriously interested people, or your competitor, one of the two.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, we've got probably 8 or 9 white papers on the Bitburg LLC website right now, and so we get quite a bit of action in terms of downloads. You're right. A lot of competitors, download the white papers, but we also are seeing a lot of folks that are curious about a topic and are at the beginning of a buying stage, or we're seeing folks that are very close to looking for someone to assist them in solving their particular issue. So white papers have, roles ranging from the beginning of that funnel or that relationship all the way down through a point where somebody is ready to engage an expert and is really starting to look for a solution to their problem.
Well, we're at just 4 minutes before we have to close out. So, Alan, can you just very quickly tell us about Superstar Tactics guest blog?
Yeah, I will. And, if you will just advance to that next slide there, a guest blog post is basically where your partner ends up putting their thought leadership on another individual's blog and then having that link back to their particular site. So here's a simple example. Wendy, I asked Wendy for a blog post on, SEO and long tail keywords. She writes it, I place it in my blog, and then I put all kinds of links from my blog posting back to her website. Now what that does is it builds a huge amount of authority for Wendy, and not just because she's on my website, but because in the Google search engine rankings, they're looking specifically for links that are coming into the Ungenuity website from third-party sources. So a guest blog is just a terrific way of building authority, cementing thought leadership, building search engine rankings, and again, once you get somebody back to your home-based website, a way to present offers for conversions. It's a very strong tactic for building superstars.
Well, I know you can do it, and I know that sometimes I get overwhelmed when I talk to people like Rachel and Alan because they have so much knowledge. But I know a lot of marketing pioneers who have taken this knowledge, who've hired some experts, who've learned some things, and really developed enormous capacities for their firm in terms of lead generation and the reputation of being the superstar, the person to go to when you have this type of problem. I really appreciate your time and your questions and your ability to listen to us on some really geeky subjects. I'd like to thank you, and I'd like to give you our email addresses and welcome your specific questions to either of our technical experts or to me. We would absolutely welcome your questions. And if you'd like to talk to us about how you can build your own partners into superstars, we'd love to be able to help you. And Rachel, Alan, thank you so much for your brains and your articulation on a very technical subject.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
No, thanks for having us. Bye now.
Okay, bye-bye.